Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. By virtue of the power vested in me as Chancellor, I hereby constitute this congregation of the University of the Free State for the conferment of master's and doctoral degrees in the Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences. I therefore confer master's and doctoral degrees to all the candidates that the Dean presents to this congregation. In addition, I hereby award master's and doctoral degrees to those whose names appear in the program but who are not present here today.
Please be seated. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome you at this auspicious and joyous event on behalf of the University of the Free State. For me, graduations are, in fact, joyous events. It's an event where you should show your celebration to your loved ones, but it's also an event that carries with it a level of dignity and ceremony. Now, having said this, it's important to distinguish pomp and ceremony from human emotions in your response. And I also always say that this is not a church service, it's a celebratory event, so if you want to show your emotions, you should do that. But later on, the program director will give us some guidelines how effectively we will be doing that component of the ceremony. For many in the audience today, I believe that this event marks a culmination of a great deal of hard work. And in many cases, that comes with a lot of sacrifice. And whether that sacrifice is emotional or whether it's financial. And I would imagine that that sacrifice not only sits with you, those that would have received their degrees this afternoon, but will be extended to other parts of the family, the larger circle of friends. And we will give an opportunity later to you to show your appreciation to that circle that has also sacrificed with you. The University of Free State try not only to develop the individual, and in fact by achieving what you have achieved this afternoon, that is one component that we try to do, whether it is to supervise a thesis or dissertation, to in fact convey and to generate new knowledge, or whether it's modular courses in a master's degree that you have to study and content has been shared with you. That is the one component that we do. But the other part that we also try to do is to embed a set of values within our graduates. And hopefully that set of values will set University of Free State graduates apart from other graduates in the system. And those are the values of critical inquiry and the receptiveness to alternative ideas and what those ideas engenders. And that is actually what research is all about, is effectively to look for the truth. And that truth will generate or could generate different views in the journey getting to the truth. But it's also a value that talk about service. So it's not only about myself, it's also about the community and for those that we serve. And with that comes a level, and a very high level, of social responsiveness. And I think it's important for us to remember that. But the last value that I think we stand dear for is the value of integrity. And that value is being challenged quite extensively in societies around the globe. Whether it's the financial sector, through cases that's already been that's known to you, to what extent integrity has been challenged there, whether it's our political dispensation in terms of corruption and others, and whether it's not trying to understand what the challenges are that the poor experience on the globe. And I think that the way in which we engage with the sectors in which we will operate and the way that we engage with other people will be must be at the highest level of integrity. So with those few words, I would like to just welcome you again, and for the graduates, the families, their loved ones, and very importantly, for our members of staff that are here, this is your day, and enjoy it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the best event on our academic calendar. It is truly a celebration of all of the red coats, and I'd like to encourage those who graduate in the black coats to aspire to also next or in a few years carry the red coat. Some of you made promises to me outside already, so I'm waiting for the black coats to get a red coat. I'd like to welcome the Chancellor, Dr. Khotso Mokele. I'd like to welcome the Vice Chancellor and Rector, Professor Francis Peterson, and he gave a short word of welcome. I'd like to welcome my fellow Vice Rectors on stage, Professor Puleng Lenkabula and Professor Henry Krokamp, the two registrars, Dr. Gift Finger and Karen Leisenby, the principals of the South Campus and the Kwakwa Campus, Professor Johan Grobelaar, who is the chair of the convocation, deans and representatives of deans, and the representative from the SRC, our Student Representative Council. I'd like to welcome the staff. Thank you for all your hard work. For those staff who are sitting amongst the PhD students, thank you for your hard work in providing mentorship and being a promoter that brings these students to this big event. We really appreciate your hard work, your commitment, and you have certainly, this is really the fruit of your hard work. To the students and the candidates graduating this afternoon, I hope that you will enjoy the graduation. It is, as Professor Peterson has said, truly a celebration and the highlight of our academic calendar. Family and friends, I hope you will enjoy these festivities with us. The university makes use of official photographers who are present in the hall today. However, areas on campus have been allocated to a number of freelance photographers for the purpose of photographing graduates. These photographers are not accredited by the university, and the university therefore has no control over the quality of their photographs. Those of you who arrived after the pre-ceremony announcements are asked to refer to the bottom of page 2 in the graduation program. Today is a time to celebrate the achievements of each of the graduates crossing the stage. Hearing the full name of each and every student is important to everyone. We therefore ask you to limit your cheers to as short as possible to make it possible for the audience to hear the name of the next candidate being called out. Also, I would like to remind you to not leave the ceremony before the end of the proceedings, and of course remind you to please put your cell phones on silent. It is my honor to announce today's guest speaker, Dr. Max de Prier. And Max has said that I must speak as shortly as possible about him, and I know everybody knows Max. So Dr. Max de Prier is a veteran journalist, author, and analyst of South African political economy, with an impressive 13 titles on South African history and politics to his name. He is extraordinary professor in the School of Communication of Northwest University and a fellow in the Center for Leadership Ethics in Africa at the University of Fort Hare. Both the University of the Free State and Stellenbosch University awarded him an honorary doctorate in 2016 and 2017, respectively. Following a long career in the media, he is currently a columnist for the News24.com and Netwerk24.com. I now call upon Dr. de Prier to address us.
Thank you. Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, especially you with the fancy red coats and the black coats. This day is the culmination of years of perseverance, a day that you and your families will remember forever. I honor you for your commitment. And I suspect that there are many stories here among the people I see in front of me of overcoming great personal odds to achieve what you achieved today. I was getting really a bit depressed with the state of our nation in the last few weeks and months. But seeing you here, looking at your faces as you came in, really restored my faith and my hope in our nation. As master's and PhD graduates, you are members of our society's intelligentsia, educated and professionally active groupings in society. Today, if you Google the word intelligentsia, the dictionaries will say to you, it means intellectuals who form an artistic, scientific, social, or political vanguard. You, ladies and gentlemen, are in the vanguard of South Africa's quest to develop into a prosperous, caring country and a progressive, open society. You, in the ongoing process to undo the wrongs and inequalities of our bitter past. So being a member of society's intelligentsia doesn't necessarily turn you into a noble person. Let me talk to you about two members in our past who were members of the intelligentsia, Dr. D.F. Malan and Dr. H.F. Verwoerd. Dr. Verwoerd actually had 2 PhDs, but those 2 men used their intelligence to perfect, to fine-tune the evil system of apartheid. Being in a position of power also doesn't make you a member of the intelligentsia. And you know who I'm going to refer to first, Donald Trump. Closer to home, we have another example, former President Jacob Zuma, who positively mistrusted intellectuals, insulted them, even those in his own party. The real values of a true intellectual are integrity, honesty, tolerance, open-mindedness, and most importantly, an unending and unconditional search for the truth, because the truth matters. I hope your achievement today will help you further in your process to becoming financially prosperous in your personal life. Because financial security gives you the freedom to choose and to live a rich and rewarding life without worrying where your next meal is going to come from. But I hope your personal financial stability will not blind you to the fact that most fellow citizens in our country live in poverty and many in extreme poverty. I hope you will realize, as our intelligentsia, that this is not government's problem. It is your problem, and it is my problem. It is all our problem. My generation has failed this country. I hope we will not say that about your generation one day. So the word intelligentsia may have been coined in Poland, but that concept is not alien to Africa and to South Africa. And I'm going to give you a little story to tell you of one example. You know, life in the 18th century, early 19th century, were rough in these parts, but also elsewhere in the world. Kings and chiefs had absolute power. Women had no power whatsoever. Kings and chiefs often used military power to show off their prowess, as we men seem to want to do too often. But in 1720, a boy was born not far from here who was to challenge this status quo and create a new African intelligentsia right here in the Free State. His name was Motlomi. He was the son of a famous Bakwena chief. When he took over the chiefdom from his father, he started doing crazy things, completely different things from all the other chiefs in the area. First thing he did was he disbanded his army. He sent his soldiers to work in the fields to say to them, make food rather than war, be better husbands and be better fathers. And all the other people in the subcontinent just looked at this man and said, he is weird. We know from people telling the stories to their children and their grandchildren, because Mohlomi died a long time ago, but his legacy lives on, and the word of mouth tells us that his favorite pastime is to have long philosophical discussions with other wise men of his region. And long after his death, people remembered that he pondered the questions that you and I also ponder. Where does the universe begin and where does the universe end? What is the essence of life? How did life start? How was life created? He had a set of proverbs or teachings that have survived that we know of. He said conscience, rather than pressure from society or norms dictated by others, was man's only guide and monitor of his behavior. He said, if you are kind and generous to others, especially to the fortunate, the unfortunate and the weak, then, Mohlomi said, fate will be your friend. It reminds us of the law, the Oriental law of karma. And yet this man died an old man without ever setting eyes on anybody European. His only experiences were African. He lived in the same time as the famous Western philosophers Montesquieu, Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Immanuel Kant. I've been researching Chief Mohlomi's life for years now, and I can easily imagine the four of them, five of them, sitting around a table arguing about Voltaire's statement that if God didn't exist, man would have had to invent him, or Rousseau's statement that man was born free, but everywhere he is in chains. I have a suspicion that they would have been in awe of this philosopher of Africa. Many of Mohlomi's sayings became part of Basotho morality, even if so many Basotho don't realize it and don't know who this man was. The one thing he always used to say is, it is better to thrash the corn than to shape the spear. He was a man of peace. He said, peace is my sister. A sister being a person in society who was in a fragile position and had to be looked after and nurtured. It was him, it was Mohlomi who started the custom that we all know now, of when you meet a stranger, you raise your hand and you say, Khotso. It was him, it was Mohlomi who started that, and it's still alive in regions of our country now. But his most famous saying of all, which, if you look back at the context, was a pure call to democracy at a time when no democracy existed in the world. He said, a chief is a chief by the grace of his people, which also happens to be the title of the book that I wrote about him. A chief is a chief by the grace of his people. He was always curious for more information. He traveled long distances. We know he went to southern Mozambique, he went to Zimbabwe and Botswana and Namibia, all over South Africa, walked with a calabash and a kiri. He met all the tribes and groups. He learned about new cultures. He spoke many languages. And when in his later years he returned to his kraal near Klokkelaan, he started a leadership academy to transfer his knowledge to young chiefs and aspirant chiefs. And one of his best students, one of his most promising students, was a young man who we later came to know as Moshweshwe. He became the founding father of the Basotho nation and one of the greatest leaders of all time, a leader who stabilized central South Africa during a time of great turmoil in the early 1800s. Unlike his peers of the time who measured their masculinity according to the violence their armies could inflict, Moshweshwe never once made war, but he was also never defeated when he was attacked. If we properly analyze him with our modern knowledge and we look at his life as a chief and a king, it reveals a remarkable and complex statesman with an unusual philosophy of leadership and a surprising grasp of the realities and the challenges facing him and his people during that turbulent time of the mid-1800s. He had a vision equal to that of Nelson Mandela a century later. When Nelson Mandela was released in February 1990, about 4 days later, he phoned me, invited me to his home, and there we talked. And one of the first things he said to me, because he knew where I come. I'm from this province. I grew up as a Free State. And he said to me, people will praise me, but I'm following in the footsteps of a man who taught me everything, and his name was Morena Moshoeshoe. He was a nation builder, a diplomat, a strategist, and a pragmatist, at least on a par with the best leaders in Europe and Asia and North America during this time. Few people know that the King of France, King Napoleon IV, sent a set of silver pistols all the way from France to Thabo Bosiu to honor King Moshoeshoe as the greatest diplomat alive in South Africa at that time. In everything he had done, the influence of the philosopher Motlomi could be seen. These two men used their minds, their intellect to change society, not guns or armies or violence or intimidation. They were brave enough to break the trend of their time. They were principled, yet always open to new ideas and modernization. They were strong leaders, but they never lost touch with their people. As a member of South Africa's intelligentsia, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, view Motlomi and Moshoeshoe and their contribution as your role models. I wish you the very best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. du Preez, for that inspirational presentation or short talk. I think it's important to be reminded about how many incredible intellectuals and leaders we have on our African continent if we look at the history. So thank you for reminding us about that, and also providing us examples of how important it is to be a decent human being. We really take your message to heart. A Change Is Gonna Come is a song by the American R&B singer Sam Cooke. The song, released in 1964, pertains to the civil rights movement and is widely considered by various publications as Cooke's best composition, having been voted among the best songs ever released. To perform A Change Is Gonna Come, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tyron Willard, Angelo Moki, and Letloho Nolo Rantu to the stage this afternoon.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, just like a river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I know what's out there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, and I know change gonna come, oh yes it will.
Now I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me don't hang around.
It's been a
long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Now I go to my brother and I say, brother, please help me.
Oh, but it winds up knocking me down.
He keeps knocking me down on my knees. And oh, there have been times when I thought I couldn't last for long.
Now I think I'm able to carry on.
It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gon' come.
Thank you very much. I now call upon the Dean of the Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences, Professor Dani Vermeulen, to present the Master's and Doctoral candidates in his faculty.
Mr. Chancellor, sir, I have the privilege to request you to confer master's degrees to the candidates that are introduced to you. Firstly, Agricultural Sciences, a Master of Agriculture with specialization in agricultural economics. Terblanche F. A Master of Disaster Management. Letenu N.A. A Magagula L.M. Mashlangu T.G. Mainaka MP. Malambu J.M. Mlilu N.P. Mkwazi T. Ratlabala M.J. Robertson B. Zandile L. Chancellor, Master of Environmental Management. Dlamini S. Duma Kude N.L. Howlett Downing C.M. Iman A. Ihemba S.K. Capena M. Lechwale T. Machebe L. Manavela VT. Ngwepe NP. Palu M.C. Chancellor, Master of Science in Agriculture with specialization in agricultural economics. Adetoro AA. A Master of Science in Agriculture with specialization in agrometeorology. Oudendal C. A Master of Science in Agriculture with specialization in animal science. Hendricks J. A Master of Science in Agriculture with specialization in food science. Mawanza EP. Wessels Ruan and a degree with distinction. A Master of Sustainable Agriculture. Bastian Renee M. and a degree of distinction. Chindundu T. Dinga SS. Herpute HJ. Slongwane GP. Howe MT and a degree of distinction. Jeptas Grant and a degree of distinction. Kumalo SQ. Matlatini EP. Malatsi M. Mametja SD. Manjarara MF. Maputla MK. Makwala LB. Masenga K. Masenga S. Mashabela NG. Mbukazi WP. Mkata NC. Mdlovu PT. Mdingi Z. Mkize NN. Molala Gotla MJ. Msibi BP. Mtimkulu MP. Muluvu TS. Murwira L. Mnyeni NP. Ndlovo RS. Ngubane SS. Nketia JK. Nzama NE. Ramaisa RM. Rocco M. Shandu B. Swarashla AK. Chikudu LP. Van Zyl Nol and the degree with distinction. Zulu MT. Zenda M. Zondi SG. Chancellor, we now do the building sciences, a Master of Architecture. Boshoff Year. Boshoff LJ. Boshoff Willem H. and a degree of distinction. Botha L. Kutsia J. Kutsia N. Johannes J. Kleinans T. Latergan DS. Mitchell J. Rood L. Schreder Ayani and a degree with distinction. Van Dijk S. Van Heerden M. Whitehead PJ. Willemse IJ. Chancellor Master of Architecture Professional, Colin E.L. De Bruin S. McQueen G.R. Mens J.F. Chancellor Master of Land and Property Development Management with specialization in project management. Chandi I.N.O. Kaduku A. Mlomzale S. A Master of Land and Property Development Management with specialization in valuation. Kalane C.C. Nashila K.F. Ngimane N.N. Ntapane Z.S. Cholo N.N.B. Chancellor Master of Urban and Regional Planning. Bas K.S. Chips R. Dincy S. Janse van Rensburg, MC. Kahota, M.E. Kuku, T.S. Kotze, Andre J. and a degree of distinction. Manda G.S. Mabalane M.B. Mafantiri M.L. Magerman D.C. Malise M.L. Marulumba T. Mosia F. Moswang K. Madau R. Ntuli T.S. Tale T.K. Atsazi M.P. Van der Walt T.B. Chancellor, we now go to Natural Sciences. Master of Mineral Resource Management, Jordan E. Master of Science with specialization in biochemistry, Ditugu C.D. Malawua R.R. and a degree of distinction. Rakaki M.E. A Master of Science with specialization in biotechnology. Maslo Maholo B.J. A Master of Science with specialization in chemistry. Smith J.B.M. and a degree of distinction. A Master of Science with specialization in computer science and informatics. Nkalai L. A Master of Science with specialization in genetics, Breitenbach N. Diseku LG. Beta KT. Master of Science with specialization in geohydrology, Makahane RV. Makua MC. Christina. Eva. Masemola ME. Matobo Mashudu C. and a degree of distinction. Mofokeng SSI. Mokilitane LM. Molaova GG. Molokwe TB. Nzeze Njongua Nancy. Weberholster SJ. Ramocho MR and a degree of distinction. Van Heerden A. Van Wyk Mornay and a degree of distinction. I have to tell you, Chancellor, those were my students. Master of Science with specialization in home economics. The Tue Liesel and a degree of distinction. Master of Science with specialization in mathematical statistics, meets Paul L. and a degree of distinction. Master of Science with specialization in microbiology, Meiberg C.M. Master of Science with specialization in physics, Erasmus Lucas J.B. and a degree of distinction. Last one, Master of Science with specialization in zoology, De Jager Gerard P. and a degree of distinction. Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to present the Dean's and Senate medals to the recipients that are introduced to you. Having obtained a Master's of Science with specialization in geohydrology, he is also the student who achieved the best overall results in respect of a master's degree in the Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences. Mr. Chancellor, I present the recipient of the Dean's Medal in the Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences, Mashudu Clifford Matovo. Mr. Chancellor, I now have the privilege to introduce to you the student who achieved the best overall results in respect to undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications awarded in all faculties in 2017. The recipient obtained a Bachelor of Science majoring in Actuarial Science and was the Dean's Medal recipient during the April 2018 graduations. Mr. Chancellor, I present the recipient of the Senate's Medal, Enrico Skeltema. Mr. Chancellor, I now have the privilege to request you to confer doctoral degrees to the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce the candidates to you. A Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in agricultural economics.
Okay. Maria Frikkie Alberts. With his thesis, The Water Economy Nexus of Beef Produced from Different Breeds of Cattle, the candidate Frikkie Alberts Maria makes a contribution to the agricultural industry by estimating the water footprint, value added and associated economic water consumption for different cattle breeds. The results indicate that notable differences exist between breeds for each link in the value chain, and that the breed with the lowest overall economic water consumption is not necessarily the breed with the lowest figures for any one value chain link. Promoter Dr. A. Jordan and co-promoter Dr. M.M. McKinnon. Okay. Uhuso Sekere Enoch. With his thesis, Multiple Footprint Indicator Assessment, Implications on Consumer Preferences and Welfare, the candidate Enoch Uhuso Sekere makes an important contribution to environmental sustainability in South Africa, focusing on carbon emission and water usage and how freshwater scarcity threatens human survival and food production. The candidate developed a conceptual framework that depicts relevant factors to better understand consumer welfare and choice of environmentally sustainable products in South Africa. Promoter Dr. Jordan.
A Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in disaster management.
My PC Albert, with his thesis, Strengthening Disaster Risk Reduction Interventions in Zimbabwe, the candidate, Albert Maipisi, makes a contribution to disaster risk management theory and practice by assessing and evaluating the Zimbabwe disaster risk reduction implementation progress linked to the 5 Yogo framework priorities for action and associated 22 core indicators. The candidate exposed the challenges encountered by Zimbabwe in achieving the Millennium Development Goals and the upcoming expectations of the Sustainable Development Goals, while also proposing new DRR policy frameworks and the renewal of outdated operational and coordination systems. Promoter, Professor A. Jordan, co-promoter, Dr. P. Bongo. Ndlovu Tabu, with his thesis, Communal Livestock Drought Risk Reduction Strategies, a case of Umzingwane district in southern Zimbabwe, the candidate Tabu Ndlovu makes a contribution to drought risk reduction strategies by using the Einstein ladder of participation, the Sustainable Livelihood Framework, and the drought cycle management model to assess the preparedness of government, NGOs, and communities to deal with drought among communal livestock farmers in Matabeleland, South Zimbabwe. The study proposes continuous drought preparedness and mitigation planning as a prerequisite to drought resilience. Promoter, Professor A. Jordan.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in sustainable agriculture.
With his thesis determining the nutritional status of children from agribusiness families in the Eastern Cape, South Africa, the candidate Awonke Sonandi identified numerous gaps in previous studies conducted in the field of food security. Findings from the study dismiss the myth and long-held belief that children from agribusiness families are automatically nutrition secure and have elevated nutritional status by virtue of being dependents of food producers. His study further found that food production and food availability are key to addressing individual food and nutrition insecurity and good nutritional knowledge. And in the process, he has published 3 papers based on the study. The promoter, Professor E.M. Zwane, and co-promoter, Dr. J.A. van Niekerk.
A Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in construction management.
Kala Edo Cameron with his thesis, Challenges and Lessons Learned in the Financing of Public Infrastructure in South Africa, Czech and Slovak Republics, a comparative study. The candidate contributes to the successful identification and ranking of core success and failure factors of construction project implementation, also indicating that appropriately structured public-private partnerships with reasonable incentives hold great potential for delivering many economic, social, environmental, and technological benefits. Limited studies of this nature have been undertaken, especially in less developed countries. The novelty demonstrated in this study was acknowledged by examiners, 2 of which accepted it without changes. Promoter, Prof. Kajimosha Kantu, co-promoter, Prof. Engineer Nemek.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in agronomy.
Sakumana Mushekwa, with his thesis, Growth, Yield and Physiological Response of Zambian Winter Wheat Cultivars in 2 ecotopes, the candidate Mushekwa Sakumona provided some answers to the Zambian wheat industry about the cultivation of the water-rich ecotope of the Zambezi Basin for wheat production that will enable increased production in the country. This reduces the need to import wheat and makes an important contribution to saving valuable foreign exchange. Promoter, Dr. Joe Alleman, co-promoter, Dr. E. van der Walt.
A Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in animal breeding.
Van der Westhuizen Lenae. With a thesis, Identification of Quantitative Throat Loci Affecting Wet Carcass Syndrome in Sheep using High-Density SNP Genotypes, the candidate, Lenae van der Westhuizen, makes a valuable contribution towards the understanding of this condition that negatively affect the quality of the carcass by attempting to identify a genetic basis that predispose sheep to this syndrome. 2 possible causative mutations situated on the X chromosome were identified that could contribute to the possible solution of this condition in future breeding programs. Promoters, Dr. Mike McNeil and Prof. Niesa, co-promoter, Prof. M.M. Scholes.
A Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in applied mathematics.
Bolton Laris, with her thesis, Practical Approaches to the Application of Mathematical Modeling in Oncology, from Modeled Investigation to Data-Driven Model Construction. The candidate, Laris Bolton, not only contributes to the field of applied mathematics, but also to cancer research by illustrating possible avenues of application and demonstrating the possibilities of mathematical modeling in both fields. She approached the application of mathematical modeling to the field of oncology from 2 perspectives: model adaptation and model construction. Promoter, Professor C. Hill, co-promoters, Professor T. M. Acho and Professor D.K. Stones.
Nichonia Batonia with his thesis, Analysis of Option Pricing within the Scope of Fractional Calculus. The student introduced a new numerical scheme to solve partial and ordinary differential equations arise in all fields of science, technology, and engineering. The method was named after the promoter Atangana and the student Batonia. He published only 3 papers, 4 papers, and 3 papers are under review.
Chancellor, Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in behavioral genetics.
Fouchier Nadia, with a thesis, Putative Genetic and Environmental Factors Influencing Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, in a South African sample, the candidate, Nadia Fouchier, made a substantial contribution to behavioral genetics, especially with regard to factors involved in the etiology of ADHD, by studying possible links between heritable and environmental influences on the disease. She determined that many of the apparent conflicting results published are due to neglecting gene environment indicators in studies of ADHD, indicating that a search for rare mutations in well-known polymorphisms may be worthwhile when studying the genetic etiology of ADHD. Promoter, Prof. J.J. Spies, co-promoter, Prof. R. Venter.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in chemistry.
Alexander Orbit Taboho. With this thesis, the effects of structure and ligand variations on the luminescence of European complexes, the candidate Orbit Taboho Alexander makes a contribution to the fields of coordination chemistry and photoluminescence. With this contribution, he correlates structure with photophysical properties of a series of europium-3 beta-dikinato complexes, utilizing the 1,10-phenanthroline as an ancillary ligand. The results provide a systematic approach to the design of OLEDs, optical light emission diodes, using europium-3, and will also be applied in the design of new photodynamic therapeutic agents. Promoter, Professor H.G. Fitzer. Co-promoter, Dr. A. Brink.
Belay Alabel Nebret, with his thesis, Coordination Chemistry of niobium-5 and tantalum-5 with hard oxygen donor ligands, a solution and solid-state investigation, the candidate Alabel Nebret Belay makes a significant contribution to the complex chemistry of niobium and tantalum by synthesizing novel niobium and tantalum complexes with selective bidentate ligands and investigated the factors which govern their stability, reactivity, coordination geometry, and bonding characteristics. By utilizing X-ray crystallography as well as various spectroscopic methods, he successfully explored structure reactivity relationships in these early transition metals to identify possible physical and chemical differences. Promoter, Dr. Venter, co-promoter, Professor Rood.
Gamma,
Dumisani Vincent, with his thesis, Structural and Reactivity Relationships in Aryl and alkyl amine bisphosphine complexes of technetium and rhenium-1, the candidate Dumisani Vincent Kama makes an important contribution to model radiopharmaceutical design with a focus on the development of technetium-1 and rhenium-1 tricarbonyl bisphosphine complexes, which may contribute to solving aspects of the current worldwide cancer crisis. This work included the successful identification and synthesis of a range of rhenium syntons as potential radiotherapeutic agents and technetium precursors for diagnostic nuclear medicine. Promoter Prof. A. Rood, co-promoter Dr. A. Brink.
Q. Shen Mao, with a thesis, synthesis, confirmation analysis, and characterization of physiologically important flavonoids and isoflavonoids, the candidate Shen Mao Q makes an important contribution to the field of structure elucidation of flavonoid analogs through high-resolution NMR analysis and modern molecular modeling techniques. Her work may lead to the development of new, more reliable methodology for the determination of the absolute configuration of monomeric and oligomeric flavonoids. Promoter, Professor B.C.B. Besaidnout, co-promoter, Professor J. Conradi.
Mokolokolo Petrus Penny, with his thesis, Solid State and Mechanistic Study of Schiff-based complexes of middle transition and platinum group metal complexes. The candidate, Petrus Penny Mokolokolo, makes a contribution to the understanding of the coordination behavior of Schiff-base and oxine-type ligands to middle and late transition metal carbonyl complexes, with application as radiopharmaceutical models. He also investigated factors influencing the formation of one-dimensional metallophilic networks of rhodium-1 carbonyl compounds of importance in the electronic and optical technologies. Promoter, Prof. A. Rood, co-promoter, Dr. Alice Brink. Molokuane Pule Petrus, with his thesis, Solid State and Mechanistic Study on pyrone-based complexes of early, middle, and platinum group metal transition metal complexes, the candidate Pule Petrus Molokuane makes an important contribution in 3 subdomains of molecular nanoscience. He developed new environmental friendly ligands for metals which have potential application in the beneficiation of hafnium and zirconium, of which there are large reserves in South Africa. Model radiopharmaceuticals for imaging and therapeutic application based on zirconium, rhenium, and rhodium, and homogeneous catalysis models based on rhodium. Promoter, Prof. A. Rood, co-promoter, Dr. Marieke Skutte-Smith.
A Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in genetics.
Colin Musara, with his thesis, Studies on South African and New Zealand species of Bulbinella using nuclear and chloroplast sequence data, the candidate Colin Musara, makes a contribution to elucidating the taxonomy of species in the plant bulb flowering genus Bulbinella and provide the first DNA sequence-based phylogeny for the genus based on multigene phylogenies and a phylogenomic approach. The results serve as an indication of the value this type of intervention holds for the attempt to find a solution for the dilemma of identifying and untyping the Bulbinella species, indicating important focus points for follow-up studies to provide a solid classification of the genus and related genera. Promoter Dr. Paula Spies, co-promoter Dr. Marika Grijzenhout and Professor Johan Spies.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in geohydrology.
Sakala Emmanuel, with his thesis, Development of Rapid Assessment Tools for Groundwater Vulnerability Mapping using integrated geoscientific data sets and artificial intelligent algorithms, case study from Witbank and Ermelo Coalfields, South Africa, the candidate Emmanuel Sakala developed a new approach for groundwater vulnerability assessment using artificial intelligence, specifically for groundwater vulnerability to acid mine drainage at a regional coalfield scale. The value of this research lies in the fact that the new approach allows many of the processes of vulnerability assessment to be automated, facilitating rapid groundwater vulnerability assessments.
A Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in microbiology.
With his thesis, Assessment of Bioflocculant Production by Actinomycetes from Rivers and Dams of the Eastern Free State Province, South Africa, and their potential in wastewater treatment. The candidate, Mayowa Oladele Agumbiade, makes a contribution to the knowledge by validating the potential of freshwater actinomycetes in fluctuation. With this contribution, he explored the fluctuating activities of the positive actinomycetes strains in the treatment of different wastewater and river waters. Promoter, Dr. Ashafa, co-promoter, Professor Colin Paul. With his thesis, Evaluation of Antimicrobial Potential of Leaf and Stem Bark Extract of Euclea CRISPR and its possible synergism with standard antibiotics. The candidate, Kazim Adekunle Alayande, makes a contribution towards the development of bioactive substances of natural origin into cheaper, affordable, and readily available remedies for infectious diseases, particularly those associated with bacteria. Promoter, Dr. Ashafa, co-promoter, Professor Colin Paul.
Ji-Yon Lee, with her thesis investigating the potential of bacteriophage induction and phage-derived enzymes as alternative antibacterial approaches, the candidate, Ji-Yon Lee, attempts to use viruses which detect bacteria as a possible solution for the impending antibiotic-resistant crisis. She first attempted to work directly with the viruses, and then she expressed one of the enzymes which the virus utilizes for breaking open the bacteria to spread itself to neighboring cells. She achieved success in this regard. She also contributed to 2 papers and 1 book chapter. Her promoters are Professor Robert Bragg, co-promoters Dr. Boucher and Dr. C.W. Theron. Thank you.
Chancellor, Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in physics.
Ogugua Simon, with his thesis Preparation and Characterization of Powders and Pulse Laser Deposited Thin Films of Rare Earth Doped Oxyauto-silicates, the candidate makes a contribution to the study of the synthesis and characterization of tunable light-emitting nanomaterials applied to energy efficiency by investigating the photoluminescence properties of rare earth-doped oxyauto-silicate phosphors in powder form and those that were laser ablation deposited on silicon substrate. He has demonstrated tunable emission from rare earth-doped oxyauto-silicates with enhanced photoluminescence intensity. Promoter, myself, co-promoter, Professor Hendriksworth.
Chancellor, Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in plant breeding.
Arturo Barano Tadesse, with his thesis Prospects for Marker-Assisted Improvement of African Tropical Maize Germplasm for Low Nitrogen Tolerance, the candidate Barano Tadesse Arturo developed a potential breeding strategy for low nitrogen tolerance in maize. 83 significant marker trait associations were identified in genome-wide association studies under both optimum and low nitrogen conditions. Therefore, these markers could be used for marker-assisted selection for the improvement of traits associated with it. Promoter, Professor Labuskaghnik, co-promoters, Drs. Olsen and Bernardo.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in plant breeding.
Mwenye Obed John, with his thesis Root Properties and Proline as possible indicators for drought tolerance in soybean, the candidate Obed John Mwenye showed that drought-tolerant cultivars have larger root systems and accumulate more proline in leaves under drought-stress conditions compared to sensitive cultivars. Therefore, these traits can be used to develop new soybean cultivars that have high yield potential under drought conditions. Promoter, Dr. R. van der Merwe, co-promoter, Dr. L.D. van Rensburg.
Tapera Terence, with his thesis, Expression of Tolerance to Drought and Low Nitrogen Levels in Maize Inbred Lines in Hybrids in Southern Africa, the candidate, Terence Tapera, evaluated the effectiveness of drought and low nitrogen tolerance breeding in early and late maturity hybrids for newly developed inbred lines and testers of the International Center for the Improvement of Wheat and Maize. Genetic and agronomic data from this field trials indicated the success of the drought and low nitrogen stress tolerance hybrid breeding program in reducing the effects of these stresses, which will help to sustain and improve the efficiency of maize-based production systems in Southern Africa and other regions of sub-Saharan Africa. Promoter Professor Labuskaghnik, co-promoters Dr. Taraken, Lebaka and Mashinkait.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in plant pathology.
With his thesis, Stem Rust Resistance and Yield Performance of Irrigated Zimbabwean Spring Wheat, the candidate, Tagwe Soko, investigated the genetics of resistance in wheat to highly virulent African races of the stem rust fungus. His comprehensive research confirmed the complementary role of phenotyping and genotyping wheat germplasm in a disease resistance breeding program to enhance genetic gain, selection intensity, and speediness to market access. Promoter, Professor Z.A. Pretorius, co-promoter, Dr. Renee Prince. with her thesis, A Pathogenomic Approach Towards Characterizing the South African Population of Buccinia striformis, Forma specialis tritici, the causal agent of wheat stripe rust. The candidate, Hester van Skalkwyk, provides the first high-resolution genomic view of historical and prevailing South African populations of this important plant pathogen. The study adds valuable information to understanding the origin, migration, and adaptation of the fungus, as well as mechanisms of rust infection and host resistance. Promoter, Dr. Renee Prince. Co-promoters, Dr. Diane Saunders, Dr. Leslie Boyd, and Professor Pretorius.
A Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in soil science.
With his thesis, Integration of Soil Morphology, Chemistry and Hydrometry for Optimization of Hydrological Response Models, the candidate Darren Bauer contributes to the conceptualization and quantification of hydrological processes in semi-arid landscapes. The hydropedagogical techniques developed in this study improved the understanding of lateral flow mechanisms and further demonstrated that soil chemistry can be a valuable indicator of current soil water regimes and can be used to conceptualize hydrological processes efficiently.
Paulo Francis Locke, with his thesis, Response of Soil Carbon Fractions to Land Use Systems under Arid and to Semi-Arid Climates in South Africa. The candidate makes a unique contribution to the understanding of land use impact on soil degradation and management interventions. This knowledge can be used for the development of soil protection policies in South Africa and other countries. Promoter, Dr. Ia Kotze. Co-promoter, Professor C.C. de Pre.
Chancellor, the last one's Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in statistics.
Chifurira Retias. In his thesis titled Modeling Mean Annual Rainfall for Zimbabwe, the candidate Retias Chifurira contributes to the application of statistics in predicting rainfall in Zimbabwe. The main result of the thesis is that the standardized Darwin sea level pressure anomaly reading for the month of April will indicate the possibility of drought or no drought in the coming rain season. Promoter, Delson Chikovu.
Peter E. Yambo. In his thesis, Fiducial Inference Based on Order Statistics in Location Scale and Log Location Scale Families, the candidate develops statistical methods using the fiducial paradigm, which is less well known than the classic frequentist or Bayesian paradigms in statistics. The new concept of conditional fiducial pivotal quantities is introduced, which allows one to calculate a joint fiducial distribution of model parameters through the Gibbs sampler. While the Gibbs sampler is well known in Bayesian inference, it is used here for the first time in the field of fiducial inference.
Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, that's a little better. My kind of slightly uplifted mood is because this is the second of the two today, and there's a bit of a party tonight, which the Chancellor is going to host. So I'm already looking forward to the wine at the dinner tonight. It's been a wonderful graduation ceremony, quite uplifting in many ways, sitting here listening to the varied work that is being done in the doctoral thesis. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It went rather too quickly, just a matter of an hour and a half, and thanks to the Dean, Professor Danny Vermeulen, for guiding us through this one as efficiently as he did. All I have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to say a few thank yous and a brief message to our graduates, and we'll be out of here. Let me start with, again, acknowledging my colleagues sitting on the stage, the Rectorate, the Deans, and other members of senior management. Let me recognize the Chairperson of Council, Mr. Willem Low. Let me also recognize the President of Convocation, who's here with us this afternoon. And we have the representative of the SRC, who's also on the stage with us. Welcome to you, ma'am, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. We started out with after the guest speaker, and I'll come to the guest speaker later, with a rendition of a Sam Cooke song by Tyrone Willard, Angelo Moki, and Litlono Loranto, who, in the absence, I'm going to ask us to give them a deserved round of applause for starting us off musically. And to those who promoted both the master's and doctoral candidates who graduated today, let me also single you out, specifically you sitting amongst them. And as Professor Corley Vitun said, it is not an easy task to supervise both master's and PhD work, and your work is truly appreciated. And I want to specifically, and I know I may make a mistake or two, but I want to specifically single out Professor Roth, who sits somewhere at the side. If my count was correct, Professor Roth, you supervised 3 PhD students who graduated today, and I think Professor Labuskachn as well. Am I right? Yeah? And a co-promoter. And so I want us to give special rounds of applause for that level of productivity amongst our professors. Well, one of the things one of the key government, and now I must remember what the latest RDP version, what's it called? Whatever the document is. One of its intentions is to increase the PhD intensity of our system. And you get to that level of PhD intensity with that kind of productivity that we get from Professor Roth and Professor Labuskachn. But can I then say to all of us, let's specifically recognize all those masters and PhD promoters who led to this incredible production with a round of applause. To the graduates themselves, I've been there. I know how tough and difficult it can be. I've shared a story once before of an interaction between myself and my PhD promoter in California, which was a tough love interaction, really tough love. my mother had just died 4 years after I'd been to the US, and I came home for the first time to bury my mother, which was very difficult because she was such a pillar of my life. And I went back, and I was a very impatient PhD student, and I wanted to finish as quickly as I could and come home. Because my father was starting to be a bit unwell, and the last thing that I wanted was for my father to pass on whilst I was still out there. And things kind of were not going well. I was not properly focused and properly concentrated. And one day I walked into my professor's office after the weekly lab seminar, and I said to him that I think I want to change my project. And this man, who I knew cared very much for me, very deeply. He said to me that I brought you into my lab to come and do the work that needs to be done by my lab. If you want to do anything else, go find another lab to do that. Gosh, where do I go now? He then said to me afterwards that don't let science do that to you. You are too good to let it do that to you, to start doubting yourself. Go back there, do proper reconstruction experiments, and get this thing right. And I went back into the lab, and in my group, I was still the first one to graduate. And because of the tough love relationship that I got from John Ingram, he and I developed a lifelong relationship. I'll be in Fair Oaks, outside Sacramento, California next week to see my dear beloved PhD promoter, who's now 96 years old. And since I left the lab in 1986, I've been back to see John more than 10 times. The relationship became permanent, became lifelong, even though it had tough love moments in the relationship. And I do sincerely hope that 40 years from now, some of you will still be visiting your professors, including that particular PhD promoter who's so tough, who said that he only produced 4 papers. And he has 3 papers under review. He says only 4. And I say, I know some students had really had it tough. Prof, you really are tough. If 4 is only 4, it means you really are tough. Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask that we give our esteemed graduates a collective round of applause to say to them, well done. But then I'm going to ask you all to rise, the graduates. And I want you to acknowledge not just those who promoted you as teachers and professors directly. One of the worries that many of us have in our country is the status and the reputation of the teaching profession. And it is such a crucial and critical profession that I think we should do all in our power to re-elevate the status of the teaching profession to where it should be. And I particularly want you to applaud these teachers and professors sitting in front of you, sitting on the stage, those sitting amongst you, as a proxy to all those who taught you from the beginning, and to say thank you to all of them. Please make as much noise as you can in doing that. Thank you very much. Now, remain standing. When the Chancellor says, please stand, you don't sit until the Chancellor says you can sit. I don't know where Enrico Skeltimer's parents are, if they are in this hall. Can they identify themselves? Enrico's parents? in the Enrico is the young man who won the Senate medal. In the little chat that I had with him, he said, I wouldn't have done it without the love and support of my parents. And I'm sure all of you are making similar statements about somebody, mother, father, husband, wife, uncle, former teacher, pastor, neighbor, somebody without whom it would have been a lot more difficult for you to go across this red carpet. So again, make noise. They're sitting in the bleachers behind you, to the left, to the right. Just say thank you to all of them for the contribution that they made to you having had the privilege to walk across the stage this afternoon. That did not sound like noise to me. Please make noise. Thank you very much. You can be seated now. I'm now going to ask those who got their degrees with distinction to please rise, the master's degrees with distinction. It is an amazing achievement to get a postgraduate degree with distinction. And I really want us to give you a deserved round of applause for this very special achievement. As they remain standing, I've been watching over the last few years the transformation of the demographics of master's and PhD, even undergraduate degrees. I must say that a trend has been bucked a bit by this particular class of 2018 because for the first time in the last 4 or 5 years, the number of males now standing is more than the number of females now standing. So this bucks a trend that I've been observing where the shift has been from 6-7 years ago 8 years ago when I first got here, it would have been 90% white males who would stand at this point. So in terms of the racial demographics, we can all see the change, but what we've been observing is that in the gender demographics as well, it's shifted to almost 80-90% of those getting their degrees with distinction being female. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a deserved round of applause. Thank you very much. You can be seated. My last acknowledgement is going to be to broadly speaking, the plant science program, both plant protection and plant breeding. I think I counted, Prof. Dani, about 6 or 7 PhDs just coming out of plant science, which is a combination of the breeding program as well as the pathology program. Well done. That level of productivity is highly appreciated. Thank you very much. Let me now come to our guest speaker this afternoon, Dr. Max du Preez. Prof. Corley indicated that he needs no introduction. I mean, who does not know who Max du Preez is in this country? And why do we know Max du Preez? We know him because of the courage that he was able to display under fire in the period leading up to, in the 1980s, leading into the 1990s, with that very courageous newsletter, whatever you called it, called Vrije Werkblad. And we know many people displayed a lot of courage to bring about the demise of the apartheid system. There are many who paid dearly, many of them with the essence, their own essence, which is their lives. Many got imprisoned, and many of those were black. And there's a tendency for us to think that sacrifices were only made by those in the black community who were the receiving end of the apartheid system. And people like Max, who must have had it incredibly difficult as Afrikaner of Huguenot roots. You can tell that from the Dupré last name. His community must have looked at him as the traitor of the worst kind amongst those. It might also be easy for him to go back home because in many of the communities, he would not be a hero but a traitor. Many of those who sacrificed out of the black community, you'd go back into your community as a hero. And when a person like Max Dupré says he was starting to despair about where this country is headed, until you walked in this afternoon, and his faith was restored. The question that I want to ask you is that, is he justified in feeling that his faith was restored by you walking through that guard of honor this afternoon? Is Max 10 years from now going to look at what is happening in this country and feel that he was right to feel that his faith was restored by you? Your country, my country, is headed in the wrong direction. He shared with us governance in part of this world by wise people like Mhlomi and Moshoeshoe. I shared a story this morning that I was in just outside Vienna in a small village called Baden on Tuesday. And over lunch with a Malaysian colleague, and I asked him the question, why did the Malaysians re-elect Mahathir Mohamad, who's an old man, 87 years old, I think it is. Who is the man under whose leadership Malaysia became a dominant country in Asia, in the world. And many had thought that a person like Mahathir Mohamad had left that country on a sustainable right path. But that's not what happened after he resigned and retired from politics. But the Malaysian people decided that they wanted him back because the country was going in the wrong direction. And I asked him, why did they want him back? And part of my question was coming from the sadness in me that we don't have the ability to get Madiba back. Because Madiba is gone. So because we can't get our Madiba back the way the Malaysians got Mahathir Mohamad back, what are we going to do? Is it going to be CR17? Are we going to relax again because at least we have a president who's not corrupt and therefore things will come right? My answer is no. He is not going to be able to do it by himself. We all appreciate the immense titanic battles that he's already fighting inside his own organization, forcing him in public spaces to first say he's the president of the ANC before he's the president of the country, when we all want the president of the country to get the country right. What are you going to do? What am I going to do? To make sure that we don't read what I read in News 24 yesterday, or in the Star, I think, on the flight coming back here. There's an article in the Star about the NHI, where almost 500 anesthesiologists are threatening to leave the country when the NHI is introduced. All those people share the ambition of the Minister of Health, that quality health care must be provided to everybody in the country, regardless of their means to pay. I don't believe they want to leave the country because they want the poor to continue to get crappy healthcare services that they get out of the public healthcare system. I also don't want to pay the medical aid costs that I pay as I currently do. I pay almost 50,000 rands a year into medical aid. And because I've not had a catastrophic illness or anything like that, I get back 6,000 rands from my prescription medication. 46,000 goes into my medical aid payment that I don't get back. And I'm okay for that 46,000 to be used to help poor people who can't afford to pay. But instead of challenging Minister Motsoaledi, who is Minister Motsoaledi? What can I say about him? Some of us are threatening to leave the country. This is not the time for anybody to threaten to leave the country. There's the time for us to challenge the status quo, to make sure that healthcare is provided across the board, regardless of the level of wealth or poverty of an individual, and it's good quality healthcare. And that is achieved. We have to fight equally for good quality education. We have to fight equally for good quality infrastructure, and not threaten to leave. Go where? Donald Trump doesn't want you. He's closing the borders. The Europeans are closing the borders to you. The Australians are closing the borders to you. Not CR17. For Max du Preez to feel justified in his faith being restored by you, it will only happen if you put your shoulders to the wheel, if you challenge the status quo, if we have difficult conversations, find a way of creating safe spaces to have difficult conversations, and get this country right. We deserve a good country. We deserve the right country. And it will not happen to us. We will make it happen. It will not happen without us making it happen. 1994 did not happen. It was made to happen by the Max du Preez and the Hector Petersons and the Nelson Mandelas and all those who paid dearly. Let's not make the mistake that the Americans made when they elected Barack Obama and believed that because they've elected the first black president of the US, now there's someone in the White House who will solve all the problems of the Americans. We've seen what has just happened. There was a portion of white America that was so unhappy with Barack Obama's elected that they went and elected a misogynistic, racist, narcissistic Donald Trump. We thought because we had elected Madiba, everything was going to happen. We then elected Jacob Zuma. Zuma didn't happen on us. We made him happen on us. It will not happen, ladies and gentlemen, unless we make it happen. The Vice-Chancellor spoke about some of the values that we hope you walk out of this institution with. I'm not talking about those with the, Prof. Coley was calling them green coats. First time I had them referred to as red coats and black coats. I thought they were gowns. Those of you in black gowns who still want to get their red gowns, I'm not talking to you. Those who are leaving this institution with the values that the Vice-Chancellor and Rector said, we hope you walk out of here with. I want to add that value of courage under fire that the Max du Preez of this world were able to display at some point in time because it was called upon to. That the situation now still calls upon all of us to display courage regardless of the heat of the fire. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations and good luck to you. This concludes the proceedings for this afternoon. The university takes great pleasure in inviting you for refreshments in the Ace van der Merwe Scholes Hall to the west of this venue. Yani Mare, accompanied by the Graduation Instrumental Ensemble, under the direction of Anton Esterhazy, will shortly lead us in the singing of the national anthem. After that, you are requested to remain standing whilst the congregation is dissolved and until the main and academic processions leave the hall. May you please rise. By virtue of the power vested in me as Chancellor, I hereby dissolve this congregation of the University of the Free State.
Thank you.